Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. 7 men suspected to be major players in the illegal drug trade were yesterday arrested during operations led by the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Division, CTOC in St. James. A news release this morning from the Jamaica Constabulary Force Corporate Communications Unit said the police military operations were conducted in Rhine Park, Westgate, Granville, Mount Salem, Catherine Mount and Flanker. It says among the suspects detained are members of a major transnational drug trafficking syndicate suspected to be behind the export of large quantities of dangerous drugs to the United States and Europe. Some of the men detained are believed to be connected to the 3 Jamaican police who were arrested in the United States last week after they were held smuggling a quantity of cocaine, a large cache of electronic devices, cash in both foreign and local currency with a value in excess of 1.2 million Jamaican dollars, a BMW X6 motorcar, as well as a licensed firearm were seized during the operation. Jamaica stands to suffer the greatest economic fallout in tourism among developing states due to COVID-19. That's according to a report released yesterday by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. We have the details in this report.
With the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the global tourism sector is expected to see a significant decline. That's according to a report published by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD. The report revealed that the world's tourism sector could lose at least 1.2 trillion or 1.5% of the global gross domestic product. It also noted that the losses could also rise to 2.2 trillion or 2.8% of the world's GDP if the break in international tourism due to COVID-19 lasts for 8 months. Jamaica stands to suffer the greatest loss in GDP at 11%. Now, senior strategist in the tourism ministry, Delano Sivrite, says the impact is greater for the island based on the interconnectivity of our industries.
Tourism is a lot more interconnected than many people had assumed. People seem to lose sight of the fact that our tourism industry, the linkages has been deepening over the years, which is also a good thing for Jamaica. But yes, it also means that we must at all times continue to develop other options as it relates to our economy. But the fact is, tourism has the biggest potential for growth.
It's not that we are losing more money than other countries. Obviously, the United States, France, and those countries will lose a lot more. But Jamaica, in terms of its dependency on tourism, has lost a lot.
But despite the gloomy picture, Mr. Sivrite believes that things will rebound in the near future.
But we have accepted the fact that we have to open up, but we have to open up cautiously. And we're very confident that certainly within a year or so, tourism will come back to appreciated, to good levels that are sustainable, and we will go on a surge essentially after a year or so back to the numbers that we had pre-COVID-19. This is just a very bad moment in the time of tourism.
That's also the view of Dr. McNeil, but he believes much more would need to be done by the government in the recovery process.
It's important for government to look at creative ways, use some of the TEF, work with the banks, put in a system where just by putting the capital there, they can lower the cost of the interest rates to these small tourism entrepreneurs, and in lowering the cost to them, maybe even put a moratorium on principal payments just to allow them to go through this period.
The UNCTAD report comes against a background of the tourism minister's projections that Jamaica is expected to lose 146 billion Jamaican dollars from April 2020 to March 2021 due to the downturn in tourism caused by COVID-19. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
It was too aspirational, that concession from Chief Executive Officer of the Economic Growth Council about his own government's plan to grow the economy by 5% in 4 years. Aubin Hill was facing Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, PAAC, yesterday, where he made recommendations about how the country can get back on track to the 5% growth target. Here's Krista Campbell.
5 in 4 was an aspirational, in fact, an inspirational target.
Almost 3 years into his post as Chief Executive Officer of the Economic Growth Council, EGC, Senator Auburn Hill insists the government's 2016 plan to grow the economy by 5% in just 4 years was never a concrete target to begin with. But Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee PAAC member Fitz Jackson says Prime Minister Andrew Holness already made that concession about 2 years into the target. With the 4 years now past and the country yet to see a 5% growth in the economy, PAAC members wanted to know what went wrong.
Rain produces growth in agriculture, except that in 27 it wiped out agriculture. So agriculture dropped to, if we grew 3 or 4% in most of those quarters of 2017, we're lucky.
That's after a 28% growth in the agriculture sector in the second quarter of 2016. Senator Auburn Hill said he initially agreed to the 5 and 4 target because he knew it was the only way to get the country out of its huge debt. But he notes that when he assumed office in 2017, he felt a more realistic target would be 2.3% growth in 2018. That year, the economy only grew by 1.2%. Still, he insists the target is necessary.
Unless Jamaica grows in the vicinity of 5 and 6% consistently over a long period of time, we will not be able to lift the majority of Jamaicans out of poverty.
And while he maintains he's not in the business of predicting the future, but rather working towards it, Senator Hill is proposing legislative changes that would still make a 5% economic growth a reality. He pointed to what he termed the growth triangle of water, housing, and energy, noting that any growth in these areas will cause a boom in the economy as well. He gave a scenario of a young couple trying to buy their first home.
To put on solar and water catchment, Mr. Chairman, you're going to need another $1.5 to $2 million. Him can't do it. So you know what to do? We, Member Fitz Jackson, we make the law to say anybody who give them mortgage, NCBGN must include the entire cost of the renewable items, the water catchment and the solar, so that the young man and his bride can go and get their house and pay for this over a 20-25 year period.
Laws are passed in this parliament by the majority in this parliament. The government has the majority. So, and all that has to happen for those laws that for which you speak to be passed, it's for them to be brought here.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
And we now take a break on the midday news. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Continuing the news now. East Kingston and Port Royal Member of Parliament Philip Paulwell has rejected suggestions of impropriety in his acceptance of a $6 million donation from Petrojam for Camperdown High School to upgrade its sporting facility. Prince Moore has the details.
In a report, the Director of Investigations at the Integrity Commission said only $1.75 million was spent on drawings and plans. But no evidence was given to support statements from Mr. Paulwell that the balance was in an interest-bearing account at the National Commercial Bank. Camperdown High Principal Valentine Bailey has since come forward to support Mr. Paulwell's account, adding that the balance was spent on operating expenses such as electricity and water bills. Mr. Bailey said Mr. Paulwell was not involved in the spending of the money. In a Facebook post this morning, Mr. Paulwell explained that he was approached by the former Energy Minister, Dr. Andrew Wheatley, to choose a charity for a donation from Petrojam.
I immediately thought of Camperdown. Camperdown is regarded as the sprint capital of Jamaica, and indeed they do very well at football, and they have been trying to secure their own field for many years, and I have been trying to assist them. So it was without hesitation that I submitted the proposal, which I gather that the Petrojam board considered and approved, and afterwards submitted through me a check for $6 million. The check was made out in the name of Camperdown High School. It was handed over to the principal, and that was it for me.
Mr. Paulwell says he expects the Camperdown principal to give a full account of the expenditure.
I'm certain that the principal will be doing full accounting not only to me, but also to Petrojam on how the funds have been spent. I want to reject any hint of impropriety in this matter. I'm very concerned about what has happened with Petrojam, and I believe those processes must be concluded and the chips fall where they may.
In a statement yesterday, Camperdown High Principal Valentine Bailey confirmed that Camperdown received the $6 million and Mr. Paulwell was not involved in the spending of the money. Mr. Bailey says the school can account for all the funds spent if required. He adds that the school intends to replace the money once it's able to resume the project. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Former Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley has denied any wrongdoing and is refuting claims of nepotism in the controversial Petrojam affair. He was responding to the Integrity Commission report, which was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. Janella Pursues reports.
The former energy minister has responded to two issues raised in the Integrity Commission report. The first relates to Sophia Dare. Dr. Wheatley says during the Integrity Commission interview, he was never asked about any familial or historic link to Miss Dare. According to the former energy minister, he was only asked about her competencies, ability to serve, and the capacity in which she served. He says he answered all questions posed to him in a truthful and forthright manner. In the Integrity Commission report, a statement provided to the Director of Investigation by Dr. Wheatley regarding his relationship or affiliation with Ms. Dare was described as disingenuous. The director said the conclusion is based on Dr. Wheatley being less than truthful when he described Ms. Dare as his former technical assistant. The report says Ms. Dare has been revealed to be the mother of Dr. Wheatley's nephew. Dr. Wheatley also responded to claims that he knew the members who were assigned to the board of Petrojam and the suggestion of collusion. He said he appointed persons who previously demonstrated the ability to serve, were qualified and of solid character and reputation. Dr. Wheatley added that all public boards are subject to cabinet approval. Janella Precious, TVJ News.
Anti-corruption watchdog National Integrity Action NIA is again insisting that the head of the St. Anne Municipal Corporation, Mayor Michael Bell-Navis, should resign. Executive Director at the NIA, Professor Trevor Monroe, says Mr. Bell-Navis has refused to respond to emails, calls and messages regarding the construction of a building in violation of the Building Act on captured government land in Ocheria, St. Anne. He was speaking this morning on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program.
On the face of it, the Building Act has been violated by the person who heads the corporation responsible for enforcing that act over the St. Anne Parish. No explanation, no side of the story being offered. So if you feel, Mayor, that you can do as you wish, then you need to resign. You need to resign even as a councillor, because that brings the office and the corporation into disrepute. In a context where corruption, improper conduct is becoming more and more a concern of the public, the mayor needs to say, I am sorry, I am wrong, accept blame, or step aside as not fulfilling his responsibilities. And I believe in this case, the sanction of resignation will be appropriately applied.
General Secretary for the Jamaica Labour Party, Dr. Horace Chang, says the party will carefully consider its candidate selection for Northeast St. Catherine to replace Leslie Campbell, who is not seeking re-election. His comment follows complaints from some JLP supporters in Northeast St. Catherine that they will reject any outside candidate selected by the party to replace Leslie Campbell. Now, the Gleaner reported that the supporters say they were informed of plans to present Senator Carencia Morrison to constituents as the party's standard bearer in the next general election. Speaking on the morning agenda on Power 106, Dr. Chang said while Senator Morrison expressed an interest in the seat, no decision has been made on a replacement. Additionally, Dr. Chang says a candidate will not be named to replace Shahini Robinson in Northeast St. Anne until she's buried.
You know, we are not declaring the candidate for Northeast St. Catherine. Morrison may have an interest, and the senator, and have among those that could be considered. We have not declared the candidate for any of those seats. We are not declaring the candidate in Northeast St. Anne until Ms. Robinson is laid to rest. Disrespectful to her.
Residents of Baalbek district in South Manchester are welcoming the return of the Postal Agency, which was closed 3 years ago. A brand new facility was officially opened yesterday.
Residents of Prospect will no longer have to travel to the New Forest Postal Agency because you now have your own within walking distance from your home. I still believe that the post offices and postal agencies still have a vital place in our Jamaican landscape. Several industrialized countries still have their post offices offering excellent customer service.
The agency was closed in 2017 as part of an exercise by the postal services to close post offices and postal agencies that were no longer viable due to the increased use of technology. However, with the demand for services the postal agency provided, residents pleaded for the return of the facility. They argued that it will ease the burden of having to travel for miles to collect their mail.
It is very important because some people, especially the elders, it's only so hard to go up in New Forest in the street there for the meal. So the elders is so grateful for it. So we give thanks.
It's long time we need it. I have sometimes have to travel for even 7 miles to go to New Forest. Yes, so I am glad for it. I'm glad for the MP, which we promised and he delivered.
Regional Supervisor of the Jamaica Postal Services, Julie Faulkner, encouraged the residents to take advantage of the services provided by the facility.
And so having our presence back here in Prospect, it's a pleasure. And I'm sure that you too are pleased to be here, to have us here. And I would encourage you not to just have this nice, lovely building put to waste, but to utilize the services that are offered here.
We go now to sports. The Inter-Secondary School Sports Association is hoping a proposed program from the Ministry of Health and Wellness could help in testing student athletes as they aim to resume high school sports. Renata Brown reports.
ISA announced on Tuesday that October has been set as a time period for the resumption of sports at the high school level, with netball, football and basketball earmarked for the resumption. But even with that time period several months away, questions are being asked of whether ISA will test athletes and support staff before the resumption. But speaking on Hits 92 FM Sports Explosion on Wednesday, ISA President Keith Wellington revealed that the Ministry of Health may help to ease the burden of testing with a program expected to be rolled out in September.
In our discussions with the Ministry of Health, and representatives, their representatives, one of the things that came out was that the schools, they have identified that schools and communities, specific communities, are going to be targeted for some sort of testing and monitoring. And therefore, when school reopens, we may have access to testing, and students may have access to testing. And based on what I heard, it wasn't definitive, but it was suggested that these tests may be done as part of the program of keeping schools and communities safe.
In the meantime, Wellington expressed how costly testing would be for just the schoolboy football competition, with well over 3,000 players participating every year.
I did a little rough calculation and said one test for just footballers playing under 19 football will cost $24 million. I don't know which sponsor we would go to ask for that payment. So again, we have to be realistic. So the realism may be that, you can't have it, right? Yeah. Or it could be that this is not practical and this is a better approach. But as I said before, we're looking at a 4-month spell that before we get to start in these competitions. And what we're looking at is how things change.
Wellington says the decision to resume sports in October was well supported by coaches and principals. Government protocol will determine when schools will be allowed to start their training programs. Renata Brown for TVJ Sports.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashan Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.